There's something about a rainy night that unsettles the soul. The way the darkness thickens, the cold droplets tapping on your window like quiet knocks from the unknown, and the distant growl of thunder rumbling through the sky. It feels as if nature itself is whispering secrets. Secrets that are best left unspoken. Secrets that might just creep into your mind when you least expect it. Tonight, I'm going to share with you 3 very scary true stories. Stories that unfolded on rainy nights just like this one. Real encounters with the unexplained. Tales of terror that have haunted their witnesses for years. These are not just ghost stories or urban legends. These are horrifying accounts documented by those who lived through them. So if you're brave enough, keep your lights on, lock your doors, and listen carefully. And remember, when the rain falls hard and the night is black as pitch, some shadows don't stay hidden. Let's begin. It was a cold, stormy night in November of 2005 when Amanda, a 24-year-old graduate student, found herself alone in her apartment. Her roommates had all gone home for the weekend, and she had chosen to stay behind, planning to finish a big research paper. The rain began just as dusk settled, painting the city streets with shimmering reflections of neon signs and wet pavement. The apartment she lived in was on the 3rd floor of an older building. The walls were thin and the floors creaked easily, but Amanda always found it cozy. As she sat at her desk in the dim light, the steady patter of rain against the window was comforting. She wrapped herself in a blanket, sipped her tea, and tried to focus. But then she heard it. A soft, almost imperceptible sound. Footsteps. At first, she thought it was her imagination, or perhaps the neighbors above her moving about. But the steps were slow, deliberate, and they seemed to be coming from the apartment beneath hers. The building was usually quiet, especially at this time of night. Curiosity getting the better of her, Amanda went to her window and looked down. But the street was deserted, slick with rain and shimmering under the streetlights. No sign of anyone. She shrugged it off and returned to her work, the footsteps seeming to fade. But then they came back, this time from inside her own apartment. Amanda froze. She was alone. The footsteps were soft but distinct, moving across the floor in the hallway outside her bedroom. With a racing heart, she grabbed her phone and turned on every light in the apartment. The footsteps stopped immediately. Silence returned, replaced only by the rain's steady rhythm. Determined to find the source, Amanda left her bedroom and cautiously walked down the hallway. The door to the living room stood half open. She peered inside, empty, except for the flicker of her TV accidentally left on. Then she noticed something else. Muddy footprints on the floor. They led from the front door, which she was certain she had locked twice, curling past the hallway into her bedroom. Frozen in place, Amanda called the police. When they arrived, they found no intruder. The locks were secure, no signs of forced entry, but the muddy footprints remained. Amanda moved out the next day. To this day, she refuses to live alone on a rainy night. Later, she learned that years before, a man had been found dead beneath her window, a homeless man who sought shelter during a storm, almost exactly like that night. The storm outside shows no sign of letting up, and the night is young. You might think that such strange happenings are confined to city apartments, but horror often strikes where we feel safest, in our homes, deep in the countryside. Our next story takes us to a remote farmhouse in rural England, where a young couple's peaceful rainy night turned into a nightmare they can never forget. In the autumn of 2012, James and Lucy, newlyweds, had just moved into an old farmhouse inherited from James's great-uncle. Located miles from the nearest town, the house was surrounded by thick woods and rolling fields. That particular night, a violent rainstorm was battering the countryside, rain crashing against the windows like pebbles tossed by the storm. James and Lucy were settling in after dinner, the crackling fireplace the only light in the living room. The power had flickered several times during the storm, leaving them with only candles. Just after 11 p.m., Lucy, feeling tired, excused herself to go to bed. James stayed behind, determined to prepare some paperwork for his job. Suddenly, the candlelight flickered violently as a cold gust swept through the room. Odd, because all the windows and doors were shut tight. Then, James heard it. Something heavy, like a boot, scraping the wooden floor upstairs. Not the creaks or groans of an old house, but deliberate footsteps, slow and methodical. His heart pounded in his chest. He called Lucy's name. No answer. He rushed upstairs, the sound growing louder with every step. At the end of the hallway, the couple's bedroom door was closed, but shaking gently, as if someone or something was pushing from the other side. James pushed the door open, and the room was empty. Lucy's side of the bed was undisturbed, no signs anything was wrong. But what caught James's eye almost immediately made his blood run cold. Scrawled across the mirror hanging above the dresser, written with a misty substance, were the words, "Don't trust the shadow." James grabbed his phone to call Lucy's name again, and suddenly, the lights all went out, plunging the entire house into pitch black. He frantically tried to turn the flashlight on his phone, but it flickered weakly as a shadowy figure appeared at the far end of the hallway. A dark shape, indistinct but humanoid in form, with eyes like burning embers. Frozen with fear, James could only watch as the figure slowly pointed toward the door. Heart pounding, James fled the house, running through the rain-drenched fields toward his car. The next morning, Lucy was found outside the house near the edge of the woods, soaked and disoriented. She remembered nothing of the night, only an overwhelming feeling of dread. James never returned to that farmhouse. The house remains abandoned to this day, the locals too afraid of the shadow that stalks it on stormy nights. You might be thinking, these could be isolated incidents, freak occurrences. Maybe. But sometimes the scariest stories come from the most unlikely places, like a crowded city street on a rainy night, when you least expect the darkness to reach out to you. Our third story happened just a few years ago, proving that horror doesn't care where you live. It can find you anywhere, especially when the rain falls hard and the night is unforgiving. In 2018, Daniel, a rideshare driver in Seattle, was finishing a late shift on a cold, rainy evening. The streets glistened with wet asphalt, reflecting neon signs, and most people were already home, safe and dry. Or so he thought. Daniel received a request from an address near the waterfront, an area notorious for fog and strange urban legends. His GPS pointed him to a dimly lit street corner where a man was waiting, wearing a dark trench coat and a wide-brimmed hat pulled low over his face. The man got into the back seat without a word and instructed Daniel to drive toward downtown. As they drove through the rain-soaked streets, Daniel tried to make conversation, but the passenger stayed silent, eyes hidden in shadow. About halfway through the ride, when Daniel glanced in the rearview mirror, he noticed something odd. The passenger's feet never quite touched the floor of the car. He seemed to be floating slightly above the seat. Daniel's unease grew, but he kept driving. When they reached a busy intersection, Daniel looked again to confirm where to drop the passenger off. But the back seat was empty. No sound, no sign anyone had been there. Only the faint scent of damp earth and the cold chill of a fog that had suddenly crept into the car. Daniel stopped the car, heart pounding. The area where he picked up the passenger was now deserted. No footprints, no wet umbrella left behind, nothing. Later, Daniel learned that 2 years earlier, a man matching the passenger's vague description had disappeared on that very street during a rainstorm. Never found. The experience haunted Daniel's every rainy night drive since. Rainy nights, so peaceful on the surface, yet beneath the droplets lies a world of shadows, whispers, and events even the bravest fear to face. These 3 true stories remind us that sometimes, when the skies open and darkness falls, the veil between this world and something else grows dangerously thin. So the next time you hear rain tapping on your window late at night, remember these tales, and maybe, just maybe, think twice before you look outside. Thank you for joining me for these chilling accounts of 3 very scary, true rainy night horror stories. If you enjoyed this journey into the unknown, be sure to like, subscribe, and share your own eerie experiences in the comments below. Until next time, stay safe, stay dry, and watch.